Welcome to the Dash Mindset Podcast. I'm Sheri Zievenbergen. You were born, you're gonna die, and your adventure is your dash in between. So make the most of it. Unlock your potential in all aspects of your dash by embracing your uniqueness and living in a way that's authentic to you, not by doing more things, but by focusing on the right things. I'm a former corporate leader turned coach who's on my own journey, and I'm passionate about helping you on your journey too. So on the podcast, we'll explore how to live authentically by deciphering who you truly are and what you truly want. Are you ready to take a step toward designing your dash? Someday doesn't actually exist, so let's do it now. Hey friends, it's Sheri, and it has been a minute since my last episode, give or take a few months. And for those of you who reached out to check in, thank you. Your concern was actually warranted because the reason I haven't released an episode is quite simple. It required me to do tech stuff. And friends, I don't even know how to operate our TV well. And I know my kids are going to figure it out for me on that rare occasion when I actually want to watch something that they don't already have on. Which is actually making me realize I probably should have just asked my kids to set up the whole podcast tech thing too. But here we are. So here's the reason I've had to figure out tech stuff. The company that handled all my behind the scenes podcast magic decided to go a different direction. And they were wonderful. And they did all the things I did not want to learn how to do. And so when they stepped away, I told myself, it's fine. I can figure this out. It's easy enough. And then I proceeded to not do it at all. And here's the other thing that I did not want to admit at first. When I worked with them, they gave me deadlines, which meant I was accountable to someone else. And once that was gone, so did the urgency. And since I don't like doing the techie stuff, and I was only accountable to myself, it was far easier for me to fill my time with things I actually enjoy and things that I'm actually good at. And so I did, consistently, with enthusiasm. And we all do this. Every single one of us has at least one area of life where accountability to someone else makes a huge difference. For instance, people who say, I don't have time to exercise. It's often because they don't actually enjoy it. They just don't want to do it, right? And they don't need to report, I'm doing air quotes, to anyone about it. People who hate their jobs but never get around to looking for a new one. They don't like looking for a new job. Who does? It kind of sucks. It's hard. And there's no actual deadline most of the time. So we make time for the things we like and we avoid the things we don't. And we tell ourselves this fancy story about why. And it all seems reasonable. And that's what happened here. This podcast tech thing was actually pretty easy, absolutely doable. But in my mind, I had turned it into something gigantic. And the longer I waited, the bigger it got and the more ridiculous it became because I knew I was the one making it big. And I'm not the only one who does this. We all have things that we avoid. Not because they're hard, not because we're incapable, but because the story we've built around it has gotten completely out of control. And the longer we avoid it, the louder the story gets. And so here I am today, owning it and taking the step I should have not avoided. And when I say I should have, right? I mean, I love doing the podcast. In my own mind, it's something I wanted to do, yet I avoided it. So this is me shrinking the story and getting back to something I love. And it's interesting how we do it with so many things, not just exercise, not just job hunting. We'll take a 5-minute or 10-minute task and convince ourselves it requires a weekend. A weekend when we don't have other plans, which, how often does that actually happen? It requires a project plan and maybe a support group, maybe a couple committees, right? So it goes back to that saying, you can't eat the whole elephant at once. Now I get that saying, but every time I hear that, I think, why are we eating elephants? Who came up with this? Does anyone actually eat elephants? I hope not. I feel like that's frowned upon, but I'll continue. The point is that metaphor exists because we humans are really good at turning manageable things into massive creatures. And most of the things we avoid aren't elephants. They're more like squirrels. Distracting, yes. Chaotic, yes, sometimes, but absolutely manageable when we actually stop and deal with them one small piece at a time. Whether we're biting it, we're eating it, whatever it is, just one small step at a time. And what makes them feel enormous isn't the task, it's the story we layer on top of it. Stories about needing to get it perfect. Stories about not having enough time. Stories about how hard it's going to be. Stories about how we should already know how to do it. And once that story has gotten ginormous, it's over. We're avoiding it for a long, long time. So let's talk about how to shrink that story back down to some level of reality. So the first step is actually name the thing you're avoiding. I mean, I know that sounds kind of silly, but just saying it out loud sometimes can be really helpful because our brains inflate what we've identified as it's something that we don't want to do, right? It makes it much bigger than it actually is. So sometimes just saying the thing makes us realize, oh, well, that's not actually that big of a deal because we're not actually eating big animals here, right? Okay, the second thing, break it down into an actual first step, not something ambiguous like, in my mind, I was making this, I got to figure out my podcast. That sounds big to someone who doesn't like doing tech stuff. Like, figure it out. That's like, ew, gross, right? But when we break it down into an actual step, the first step I took was calling my friend Sue, who is very willing to hold my hand through all of this because she has her own podcast, which you need to listen to if you haven't already. Anyway, she's a former IT director. She's awesome. Sue Barber. You should also buy her book. But my first step was just leaving her a message and saying, hey, will you hold my hand? I need all the detailed steps that you probably think aren't that big of a deal. That was the first step. So I did that first, not the whole project, not the whole figuring it out part, but just one 60-second action. That's the step I took. So what is that action for you? What's that 60-second thing? Is there someone who can hold your hand throughout? There probably is. Okay. Third thing, commit to progress, not perfection. Because perfection is what creates the elephant in our minds on a lot of occasions, right? We're the ones, it's the big story we come up with. And for a lot of us, it's perfection. So progress is what actually can help eliminate that story in our minds, or at least shrink it down. And then the fourth thing, this is a big one, give yourself permission to suck at it, right? To be a beginner. Because being a beginner is not actually a crisis. It's just part of being human. And so often we have this expectation of ourselves that we know how to do things that there's no reason for us to know how to do. I mean, I was not in a space that required me to edit podcasts. So why would I know how to do that? Right. And so often we tell ourselves the story that, oh, I should know how to do it. Why? We don't know how to do everything. And, again, all of this makes so much sense intellectually, but we put that on ourselves. So give yourself permission to suck. You're going to suck for a while at a lot of things, and then you're going to struggle for a bit, and then you're going to improve. So, anyway, here we are. Give yourself permission to suck. Okay. So I highly suspect you already know what your elephant is. Your brain likely reminded you from the moment I started talking about eating elephants, what your elephant was. But remember, whatever it is, it's not actually an elephant or a bison or a cow. It's just a story. And stories can be rewritten. So this episode is all about me owning my first tiny step and helping you do the same, choosing progress over perfection and moving forward in some way. So it feels good to be back. And if something in your world has gotten bigger in your head than it actually is, this is your nudge. Because the stories we tell ourselves aren't fixed, we get to rewrite them. So pick the tiniest first step you can find. Take that step Maybe it's leaving a message to one of your friends who's willing to hold your hand, because that's how momentum actually starts. That's how we shift the patterns. That's how we change our stories and get out of our own way, because we're so often the ones in our way, one tiny step at a time. So, all right, friends, that's where we're going to land this today. It's good to be back, and I am grateful that you are here. If this episode resonated with you, please share, subscribe, all the things. I've eaten the elephant, so I will be back again soon. And so I'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Dash Mindset Podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player, tell your friends, and leave us a review. Follow me on my social media platforms highlighted in the show notes, and get in touch with me at thedashmindset.com. Share the topics you'd like me to explore in future episodes. Thanks again for listening to the Dash Mindset Podcast. We'll see you next time. Design and differentiate your dash your way and make today amazing.